All right, y'all, we're living in crazy times. Jerome Powell is being referred to the Department of Justice for potentially lying under oath. And what's even crazier is that after 100 years, someone is finally going after the Fed.
Look, Joe, I think that what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful.
Meanwhile, the President of the United States just posted a clip from Peter Van Volkenberg that some people say is the greatest Bitcoin explanation of all time. Are we living in a simulation? We've got Ledn replying to your neighbor who occasionally tweets and makes us all realize that we're still so early in this whole Bitcoin journey. Today, I thought it'd be good for us to slow down, to do an episode for the normies, the beginners, the newcomers, and I'll share what I think is the best explanation for those getting into Bitcoin in 2025. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go.
Here we are, 120 basically on Bitcoin, which you used to say at 70, and you know that was a 60% move or something that you were forecasting as within the next couple of months, or at least this year. Here we are now, what, 150?
I think the 200 to 250,000 for Bitcoin still makes sense, because that would still only value it at 25% of the size of the gold market.
Okay.
So I think digital gold means Bitcoin should be worth over $1 million per Bitcoin, and it could happen in the next few years. But maybe pricing 25% of that, especially with Genius Act, makes sense.
Are you going to...
If you're a newbie, you're probably wondering why a guy with no facial expression will say that we're going to have 200 to 250K Bitcoin and eventually $1 million Bitcoin without skipping a beat, without any sort of pause or hesitation. That's Tom Lee. And he's been going on CNBC and saying this for years. And all throughout the years, people have called him crazy. People like our guy Jared. Our guy Jared posted this on Twitter. Bitcoin bros are some of the most optimistic, dumbest people on the planet. It's gone up a lot is their only argument as to why it's worthwhile. And in amazing fashion, and true to why we love the internet and we love X.com, Ledn, one of the greatest macro investors in the world, replied back. Having gone up a lot for 16 years is evidence of its worth, not an argument for it. The argument for it is that it's a portable, debasement-resistant, confiscation-resistant money, the preeminent decentralization ledger amid an ocean of centralized ones. After Ledn replied, Bitcoin Twitter activated and blasted Jared with a bunch of evidence as to why he might be wrong. His response was telling. Someone said, but it's never endured through a massive downturn, a la the Great Financial Crisis. No, it was born from the Great Financial Crisis because of the money manipulation, but we won't go there. Bingo, it's only existed during a massive bull run. When a big downturn hits, Bitcoin will drop 90% because it has no floor. There is no liquidation value. Okay, a couple of things I want to reply to. People use logic like this to not invest into Bitcoin all the time. And let me dispute a couple of things. Here's the 200-week moving average of Bitcoin, showing that roughly every 4 years, the average price of Bitcoin has done nothing but gone up, and it doesn't dip below that price very often, which means if you hold for 4-year periods, well, your value goes up in Bitcoin. Let's compare that to a stock like Microsoft. When you look at Microsoft during the tech bubble, if you're going to cite Bitcoin as a bubble, well, Microsoft peaked in December of 1999 at $57 a share, about $615 billion in market cap as a company. Do you know when the next time that Microsoft surpassed that market cap in value? 17 years later. Microsoft ended 2016 with a market cap of $438 billion. Was Microsoft overvalued or a bad investment during that period? No. It depends on your time horizon. And Bitcoin has done even better than the greatest performing stocks like Amazon or Microsoft over long periods of time. President Trump just tweeted one of the clips of Peter Van Volkenberg where he's giving a speech to Congress, and they say it's one of the greatest Bitcoin explanations of all time. But I think there was one that was better that was just dropped.
Being careful here and not making explicit price predictions. What I will say is, I think the very simple mental model to use in Bitcoin is that Bitcoin equals fiat liquidity plus technology. It's a very simple idea that if you believe technology will continue to improve the world and that the story of humanity is engineering a better world, and you believe that there's going to be more fiat existing in the future than there is today, governments and central banks will continue to print money and run deficits, Bitcoin is the best way to express that idea. It's the best way to monetize that future. And so for me, Bitcoin's price appreciation is largely centered around is the technology continuing to innovate and disrupt existing industries, and are governments and central banks continuing to debase currency and print money. Bitcoin's been the best expression of currency debasement. It's been the best barometer or index for fiat liquidity globally. Over the next 12 to 18 months, I see a lot more fiat liquidity. I mean, we've heard that the Genius Act unlocks $3.5 trillion worth of liquidity from banks and capital accounts at the Fed. We know Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac wants to come back into the private markets. We know that there's over $7 trillion in money market funds. And people have to remember that prices are set at the margin. If someone wants to buy one Bitcoin and no Bitcoiner is willing to sell them a Bitcoin unless it's $500,000 per Bitcoin, well, guess what? The price of Bitcoin is now $500,000. And what people have to remember is that with such a scarcity, with such an asset that carries such scarce dynamics, no amount of demand can create more supply. If everyone wanted an iPhone, Apple can just make more iPhones. That's why the price is not as volatile and as surprising to the upside, because they can make more. If everyone wants a Bitcoin, we can't make any more. And so to get your Bitcoin, you have to go higher in the market. Hey, is there enough Bitcoin for me at 120,000? No. How about 130? How about 140? How about 150? And so prices are set at the margin. And so if we see $10 trillion of liquidity in the US financial system alone, not to mention economies like China, Japan, that are equally in trouble or sometimes more, I think that the scarcest asset in the market will have a very violent reaction to the upside, and the marginal price that we'll see could be very high. That's typically how this asset responds to global liquidity.
Jack gives us a great framework on how do we think about valuing Bitcoin. It's the best expression of monetary technology improving plus fiat liquidity. If we believe that Bitcoin is the best monetary technology, and if we believe that fiat liquidity will continue to expand, which we do, then Bitcoin is the best investment vehicle for that thesis. Charlie Kirk has another simple model, which I think is pretty good. There's nowhere else for billionaires to put their money.
I tend to agree with Michael Saylor that it's more likely to go to $1 million than zero.
Yes, I think that's right. And by the way, so you have a problem of the world's richest people. They don't know where to put their money. So there's only so many penthouses in London and Paris that they could buy. There's only so many ranches in Wyoming that they could buy. And so we had this problem. So you create all this money, the money goes upwards to wealth inequality point. To your earlier point, the question is then, well, what do rich people do with money? There's only so many equities they can buy. There's only so many shares in NVIDIA and Apple and Microsoft they could justify. Well, money needs to find a home, and it's found a home in Bitcoin. And so once it has mass adoption, and literally the wealthiest families on the planet are starting to park serious monies in Bitcoin. And because it's scarce, it's easy to transfer, and it's just a winner. Sometimes there's a mass adoption and it just rises to the surface, and I think Bitcoin is that.
He cites Saylor as saying that if it's not going to zero, then it's probably going to 1 million, which I also believe is true. And Saylor is influencing other people beyond just business owners and other billionaires. He's influencing people like Saquon Barkley, the running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, who thinks that he should have gone all in on Bitcoin and not just a little bit in.
Help me grow more confidence in my decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And if another athlete came to you today who's thinking about taking a portion of their contract in Bitcoin, what would you tell them?
I would never tell someone how much money they should throw in. Funny story, Michael Saylor told me a couple of years ago that I was like, how much do you think? And he was like, throw it all in. And I was like, I don't know if I should do that. Yeah. Probably should listen to him because I think he's doing pretty well right now. But it would go back to just educate yourself. Yeah. That's it. Like it's in anything. That's not just only when it comes to crypto or coming to investing. It's life. You got to educate yourself on stuff before you just step into it. If you go into a lot of things blind and don't have a lot of information on it, probably don't end up well. But educate yourself, surround yourself with the right people. And if that's something that you agree with or it hits home with you, then do as much as your heart desires. Yeah.
Knowing what you know today, would you go back and take your whole contract in Bitcoin?
I mean, yeah. I guess depends though, right? Yeah. I think I'll probably panic a little bit more when the dips happen. Yeah. But
celebrate a little bit more
and celebrate more with the wins.
One of the ways to express a long-term thesis on Bitcoin being the best performing asset of all time is that you never sell Bitcoin. One of the ways you can unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin stack without selling your Bitcoin is by working with the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018, which is Ledn. They've issued over $9 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers. Get liquidity in your account in just 12 hours. Applications take just 2 minutes, and because the process is so simple, fast, and transparent, they have over 1,000 5-star customer reviews. Get started today and get 0.25% off of your first loan by going to learn.ledn.ao learn.ledn.io/simply. That's learn.ledn.io/simply. One of the ways that people express Bitcoin being the most valuable asset over time is that they don't just go it alone. Most people who want to protect their finances get a financial advisor, a coach, someone to help them understand how to manage their money the right way. Well, that's no different with Bitcoin, except you can hire someone from the Bitcoin way to help you to protect your generational wealth the right way. Learn how to manage your Bitcoin privately, safely, securely, in a way that will help you to maintain its value over time and not get rug pulled. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. Back to the show. One of the reasons you shouldn't doubt Bitcoin is because since 2010, here's the price and the performance of Bitcoin versus literally everything. And here's a great chart from Charlie Bolello from Creative Planning, a financial advising firm. Since 1971, the years at which the S&P 500 has made an all-time high is increasing, and those blue streaks are continuing to be strung together ad nauseum at this point. And that goes to show that the S&P 500 used to be the best expression of investing in the best technology in the world and fiat liquidity expanding into those assets. And that's why it continues to make all-time highs. That's why it continues to go up, not because it's a safe investment. Bitcoin is just a better form of that expression in 2025. And Bitcoiners understand this. In fact, longtime hodlers hold 74% of all the Bitcoin, and they're not selling. According to Checkmatey, the realized cap of Bitcoin, or the amount of money that people put their hard-earned fiat dollars into Bitcoin, just reached $1 trillion. That's right, 1 trillion. Did you say 1 trillion, Dante?
Groovy, baby.
For all the people like Jared who are out there who are still asking questions like, how will Bitcoin survive the government trying to ban it? Well, it's pretty clear that this administration is pro-crypto and specifically pro-Bitcoin. They're not only going to not ban it, this week even, they're going to announce plans of how they're going to add Bitcoin to their treasury. This asset isn't going away, and it's one of the only tools that they can use to get away from all of the debt that we've created since 1971. Number 2, it's too volatile. Well, if you don't like upward volatility, then I don't know what to tell you. It's been the best performing asset in the world 11 out of the last 14 years. And he says that a small number of people own the majority of Bitcoin. One, that's not true. We can see all of the addresses on chain. If they ever do sell their Bitcoin, we'll see it. And if they do sell their Bitcoin, we just gobble it up. It doesn't impact the fixed supply of Bitcoin, 21 million. And it doesn't impact the fact that billionaires and everyone else are looking for ways to store value. Hope this episode was valuable for you newbies, and I hope Jared continues to come to the light and has a little bit of humility in these conversations. Before you go, if you want to continue to learning more about Bitcoin, you can learn about Bitcoin mining, the makers, the machines, the manufacturers behind how the network actually works. Come down to the largest Bitcoin mining expo in the world in Dallas, Texas from November 11th through November 13th at the Mining Disrupt Conference. Get 20% off your tickets by using the promo code SimplyBitcoin. Hope this episode was valuable for the newcomers and the beginners as to why you should consider investing into Bitcoin in 2025. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.